From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, we got Michael Langston talking about recruiting, mainly the elite camp. Florida State's baseball fortunes for a 44th straight season do not end with winning the final game of the season, and the Zaxby's Indescribably Good Player of the Week in the middle there somewhere. And as always, we are presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill in Tallahassee, Florida. Check out their daily lunch specials Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., only $8.99. Monday specials, build your own burger. What else do you want? Burgers, your way, over at CP. That's the Corner Pocket. Check them out off Appalachia Parkway in Tallahassee. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source. Thumbs up on the YouTube. Thumbs up and a subscribe. By the way, Langston's recruiting rap will have been repurposed from his YouTube video. So if you came on here, YouTube people wanting more recruiting out of Michael, it's just the same thing. Sorry. Subscribe to our website. Corey Clark, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. Back in town after a long trip to Charleston. And then Brady's doing the Leonard Hamilton basketball camp this week, so back in town for that. How was Charleston in terms of successes on the diamond? He never had as good a game as he had that first game. That was something else. Still excited about that one. They went 2-2, lost a heartbreaker, and I think Brady learned a little something about baseball now that he's getting older. He's about to go into high school. He's still 13, but he'll turn 14 here soon. He's getting ready for high school. They were losing 3-2 against a very good team, a team that ended up winning the championship. And they beat the crap out of everyone but Brady's team. But it's 3-2. Brady's on third, sixth inning, 2 outs, our best hitter up, and Brady at that moment decides to delay steal of home is the right play on his own. Yes. So the head coach had told him to be aggressive, but the head coach, talking to him afterwards, he's like, I meant on like a pass ball or a wild pitch, be aggressive. So anyway. Brady decides to try to steal home, delay steal home. That stuff works in rec ball, right? Or against 11-year-olds maybe. Also, this was the first tournament he'd ever played on a real diamond where it was 60 feet 6 inches and 90-foot bases. So as he told me later, about halfway home, he realized, oh, yeah, this is 90 feet, not 80 feet. And so he was that extra 10 feet, that's how much he was out by. It would have been a bang-bang play at 80 feet. 90 feet, the catcher was just waiting for him. And the catcher, threw his knee down in front of the plate, blocked it. I think came up and his knee actually hit Brady in the face as he tagged him out. Jeez. And then the catcher says, sit down, B word. Ooh. Not B as in Brady. Oh. Sit down, and spikes the ball.
Oh, what?
And nothing really happens. We get a so our parent hears that. Well, I'm not even going to get into all that. But there was a little kerfuffle afterwards, but the umpire didn't do anything to catcher, which was ridiculous. But Brady was almost like he was so perplexed after the game, I don't even know that kid. Why would he have said that? And then the very next game, a game they win, their last game of the tournament, because it's a consolation game, because they lost that game, Brady getting thrown out at home. He swings and misses at strike 3, and the catcher says, sit down. And rolls the ball, and Brady's walking back to the dugout, pointing at with his hand, his palms to the sky. What's wrong with all these catchers? Why are they so mad at me? He doesn't even know me. And so afterwards, I had to have a talk to him. Man, there's going to be jerks on other teams. Go to a college baseball game and listen to what the dugout yells at that pitcher that's on the mound. So I just thought it was man, you're grown up now. You're going into high school. These guys aren't all your friends. You don't all go get Cokes after the game and sit in the grassy knoll. Some of them are jerks. Some of them are going to say things, and you have to respond. Now, you don't have to punch them, but say something back, or make them pay the next time you're up there. So anyway, Brady said he did. The catcher ended up having 2 pass balls that cost them runs, and Brady yelled from the dugout, "Nice block, catch! Way to block it up. You almost had it. Thanks for the run." So that's Brady answering the way he answers. But don't you think that's a great life lesson?
Absolutely.
For a 13-year-old? Man. There are jerks out there. They're going to talk smack to you. They don't even know you. And you got to bow up and stand up for yourself and know that not all these people are your friends. So go have that attitude when you're on. Now, don't be a jerk, but have a little edge to you when you're on the field, because there are going to be other kids that do.
Keeping it on the baseball tip then, Corey, Florida State season comes to an end out there in Auburn in the regional. They don't go 0-2 in barbecue. They did win the opener, which just proves how cruel of a format this entire thing is. They take out UCLA on Friday afternoon, 5-3, then take on the host team Auburn on Saturday. I didn't get to see that game, and I'm glad clearly that I didn't. They lost that game 21-7. 21-7. I don't know all the distinction that happened pitching-wise. I think Corey probably knows some of it off the top of the dome. And then yesterday, in a elimination game against UCLA, they fall 2-1. Jaime Ferrer with a jack, but then Eric Karros' kid responds in the top half of the following inning, and then in the top of the ninth, UCLA with another solo home run. So, yeah, man, the season is over. I guess we saw it coming. We were all ready to get hurt. We bowed up and we're like, all right, this is going to be okay. We're going to figure out a way. We'll sneak through this regional. They take out UCLA, but then all the warts start showing, Corey. And I don't know. I'll ask you a question at some point here in the next 15, 20 seconds, but just everything looks there's nothing redeeming about this team. And you've mentioned offensively. They don't hit for power. They don't get on base. The starting pitching, for the most part, kind of failed them here down the stretch, other than Jonas Gallara, who absolutely pitched his heart out on Sunday. Shout out to him. Defensively, they're nothing to write home about. On the base paths, they do things that are, quite honestly, embarrassing. I don't know, where you go from here. I'm not saying fire Mike Martin Jr. He's coming back next season. I can almost assure you of that, everybody. I just wonder how he'll be judged, what he can do, what needs to be done. Maybe that's some bigger picture stuff. But I guess, what did you take away from this weekend? Did you start believing it all after Friday's win?
Oh, of course not. No, because the whole weekend was going to come down to that Saturday night game. And as I talked about last week, and as it proved to be prophetic, not that you had to be, Nostradamus to figure this one out. Or the coracle. Yeah. I didn't expect Bryce Hubbard to handle that moment. I just didn't. I've watched that kid pitch. I've watched him pitch on the road. I watched him pitch at North Carolina, where he melted down and didn't get out of the second inning. Didn't even get out in the second inning. And then you put him on that stage, in that environment, against that team.
Which, I'm sorry, not to interrupt you, man. I was in Auburn on Friday. I stayed for the Friday night game when they played Southeast Louisiana. That place was electric, man. They have a parking deck that rivals what softball has, but there's triple the amount of people on it. There's people. I couldn't imagine what it was like on Saturday for this team that never plays well on the road. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So he got, he looked rattled. He got rattled a little bit, and he made it through 2 1/3, which again, your only way to get anywhere in this postseason, this whole season, is if that kid pitched well against one of these teams, because you're going to face somebody good in a winner's bracket game in a regional, and you decide to go with Messick on Friday, which I said then was a mistake. He actually pitched decent. He only got you 5 innings, but he pitched well enough. But Bryce Hubbard had no chance on Saturday, and I felt that. And it seemed like that was. I mean, I would have been stunned if that kid would have pitched well. I just didn't expect it, so I wasn't stunned by it. And then by the result, and then I was stunned by the final score. That's just outlandish, 21 runs. But yeah, once they scored 7 in that one inning, it was a wrap. So you can't use any of your good arms then. You just have to kind of piecemeal the rest of the game together and hope it doesn't get embarrassing. And that hope wasn't granted. That wish wasn't granted, because it did get embarrassing. But yeah, the game on Sunday, it's a tough loss. It's a 2-1 loss. You had opportunities. You ran the bases again like children, because that's what you do, like Brady's team. Yeah, at least nobody tried to delay steal home. Only Brady does that, thankfully. But yeah, man, Tyler Martin gets picked off on a ball in the dirt that he gets too far off the bag. Trayton Rank gets picked off.
He heads it. He heads the ball. They're tossing it back and forth. Yeah. He's in a rundown, and he jumps up like he's Lionel Messi trying to score off a corner kick. It was bizarre.
Yeah, it's weird that the umpire didn't let that go. It was you got to be a little less obvious, Tyler. Let it be more subtle. Don't jump up like you're a dolphin at SeaWorld. I mean, that was crazy. Excuse me. So anyway, all the warts that we saw all season came back. That's why it was. I mean, when the pressure gets like that on the road, usually who you are comes bubbling to the surface. And on Saturday night, that's exactly what happened. 4 errors, no timely hitting until the game was well out. I mean, I'm not even call home runs when you're down by 13 runs timely hittings. They're not. No timely hitting when the game was still alive. And then when the game was still in doubt. And then, your fielding was bad. You had 4 errors, and your pitching was awful. Just an embarrassing showing. And Ross Dunn didn't record an out.
I can't even make sense of his line. 0 innings pitched, 3 hits, 4 runs on 21 pitches.
Yeah. Some of it was good hitting. Like they had Florida State was in a shift.
And a walk and a wild pitch he had as well.
Yeah, well, of course. But they had a righty up. They're in a shift. He gets a ground ball, but the kid hits a ground ball to where nobody is because good hitting teams can do that occasionally. And they put the bat on the ball. And Florida State, as we all know, struggled with that this year. But, they didn't strike. Auburn didn't strike out against them. But so UCLA, they could have won that game. You could say they probably should have won that game. It was really great that Scolaro ended his career like that because he's been much maligned. But when you watch that, and I texted this to you and Ira, I'm like, man, I don't think Meade had a very good roster this year. Now, whose fault is that? Of course, it's his.
Yes.
But he didn't maximize it either. No. Like it became pretty obvious 4 weeks into the season, you had a hole at Sunday starter. And it also became obvious that Jonas Scolaro wasn't a pitcher you could count on in high leverage situations. But there we were on Friday, Scolaro coming into what I think at the time was a 1-run game or a 2-run game. No. And his first pitch hits the kid. He's in there specifically to get a lefty out. And his first pitch hits the kid in the 8th inning, which was his inning for much of the year. Then he gives up a single. He gets an out on a sac bunt, and then Davis Hare comes in and finishes off the game. It's like, how many times did you have to see that this year to realize Scolaro wasn't that guy? You shouldn't be using him in high leverage situations. But the one time he started was against Florida, and I think he went 4 innings and didn't give up a run. Mm-hmm. And then he starts again at the end of the season against UCLA, goes 6 1/3, and gives up 1 run. So in his 2 starts this season, the kid threw 10 1/3 innings against Florida and UCLA and gave up a total of 1 run. And I think had like 15 strikeouts.
He had 9 on Sunday, man, career high.
Yeah. So because I think his career high before that was that Florida game. So it's like, man, just like and you win a whole regional without using Carson Montgomery. Just that bullet was just left in the chamber. That's not a great metaphor. I apologize. That arrow was left in is it a quiver? What do you put arrows in when you're
I thought a quiver is the thing that's on the arrow, like on the
You're
back
right.
of it.
An arrow is, I don't know what you call. What holds an arrow? Is there like a rubber band?
You left gas in the tank or something. I don't know.
Sure, whatever. Choose whatever metaphor you want, guys. It's been a long weekend. I'm trying my best here. So that's my biggest issue with Meade. My biggest issue with Meade right now is the makeup of the roster and the way it's constructed. This was not a well constructed baseball team. I know he had some issues trying to construct it, but just the offense was awful. The field, but it's not just that. It's like I don't think they're not fundamentally sound at anything, and I don't think he did some of those guys a service by not making Montgomery a back end guy, by not making Scolaro a starter, because at least he just seemed to fit there better. Not making Brock Mathis anything. Like that kid just he had I think the highest slugging percentage on your team by a pretty substantial margin, 567. The next one was Tibbs at 553 of guys that actually played, and he got 67 at bats all year, 14 starts. He got 102 less at bats than Colton Vincent, who has 0 home runs and a slugging percentage of 231. Don't talk about the batting average, which is 195. The slugging percentage of 231 to go along with his 21 passed balls. So my point being, there wasn't anything like we talked about. There wasn't anything redeeming about this team. And he said it. He didn't say as much afterwards, but they also didn't seem all that competitive. They didn't seem mentally tough, which goes to show when they were, what are they? I'm looking at, they were 8-17 away from Hauser.
Yeah,
8-17.
It was on display Sunday. Logan Lacey grounds out. It's a swinging strike 3 that gets away from the catcher with 2 outs, and he has like a delayed reaction to go to first base. He was like waiting for them to call it a ball, and it's like, no, man, you swung at it. It's a live ball. It's strike 3. Get to first base. He doesn't. That ruins things. Wyatt Crowell has no urgency getting off the mound to go cover first base on a great play by Alex Sorrell that he backhand stops. Just these moments. I mean, there was a moment, I think, in the UCLA game where pretty much the only thing Logan Lacey don't ground out to the left side. Like I think it was on contact. They're going to send Brett Roberts from third to score, and he sure enough grounds right to the third baseman. Just these moments. I mean, that's a little more difficult. I get it when you're at the plate, but
you're just trying to make contact.
Yeah, there's just so many moments where this team just kind of just displays. I don't know how much of the stuff you can really teach and how much of you can unprogram from kids. But it happens far too often in too many crucial situations that there has to be some accountability beyond these players just not having it between the ears.
And I'm going to backtrack. The thing that concerns me the most about where this program is right now is it's not just that because, look, man, there was a hard team to manage because it was there's a lot of different holes that needed to be filled and weaknesses. And Brock Mathis was not a good defensive catcher. But Colton Vincent might be the worst hitting catcher in Division I baseball. And I'm not trying to kill the kid. I'm just looking at the numbers. I mean, he slugged .231. He had 6 extra base hits on the whole season. So he just hit 195 like that. He is a dead out at the end of your lineup.
In his defense, apparently Sebastian Jimenez was kind of slated to be the guy, but he had a freak arm injury that changed those plans. So. I mean,
right,
for what that's
and
worth.
so, but then it's maybe it's on the coach to figure out the best way to maximize who you have on your roster.
Yes.
And Brock Mathis only getting 67 at bats, 23 less than Trayton Rank, 25 less than Tyler Martin, 102 less than Colton Vincent, and all those guys combined have 1 home run. Brock Mathis in 67 at bats had 6 home runs and 3 doubles. And a single off the monster in Chapel Hill that was hit probably harder than any of them. Like you didn't have any of that juice in your lineup.
None.
So you got to figure out a way to get that bat in the lineup. But those are small things. That's the minutia. That's just this specific team. What bothers me about where the program is maybe is we keep seeing base running mistakes over and over and over again. And one that I don't know if you saw, Aslan, but Tibbs leads off, or I think Tibbs gets a 1-out single in the 3rd or 4th inning, maybe the 5th. He's at first. The next pitch, Brett Roberts hits a grounder to the second baseman. They almost make it a double play. I think they call him out, but he ended up being safe.
Yes.
They went and reviewed it, one of their many reviews, and he ends up being safe. Well, when they showed Meat in the dugout during the review, he's going off on Tibbs, screaming at him. And why would that be? Because that was a hit and run. He had called a hit and run. So Brett Roberts gives himself up on the first pitch of the at-bat to just put the ball in play, thinking that the kid on first will be running. And if he is running, maybe that ball sneaks through because the second baseman is at the bag. Instead, it's almost a double play, and Brett Roberts, who's one of your better hitters, gives up an out for no reason. And it's stuff like that, man. It's Ferrer trying to tag up and actually getting it, tagging up from second on a pop-up to short right field. And I know Meat was like, that's a freshman moment, and he said it jokingly after that first game. But man, that was Ferrer's 57th game he had played. So at some point, it either matters to you to figure it out and have some sort of baseball IQ, or it doesn't. And why doesn't it? Why doesn't it? Why do they field like they field? Why does Wyatt Crowell not? And was the best pitcher on the team really the last 3 months of the two months of the season? Why isn't he covering first? Why didn't Lacey run that out? Because it's better to run and they say no, you didn't swing, than stand there and give away an out that they've given you. They've given you a base, and not coincidentally, he wasn't in the game after that. Right. So Meat's trying, but that's a senior. Yep. And so what's not? We talk about. At least I do. I know you roll your eyes, but I talk about culture a lot. When it comes to these sporting teams that we cover. And I just wonder where is it on that team? Because they're just so many dumb mistakes over and over and over again. Not just physical errors, which they lead the world in those, but the mental errors are even more frustrating. And that's I just don't. How do you miss a hit and run sign, man? How do you do that? How do you just hang your kid out to dry like that? I know Tibbs is awesome and could be a really good player. He's not awesome. He's a good hitter and could be a great hitter by the time he's done.
He's got a hose, too. He's got a strong arm.
But that's the stuff that gets you beat, man.
Yeah.
It's just the stuff that gets you beat, and it's the attention to detail, and that's why I never believed in this team, because of the little stuff. Because it always rears its ugly head, man. When it matters the most, that's the beauty of baseball, is it always seems to come back in the tightest moments, in the most intense games, and the most important games. Stuff like that happens, and so again, but what did it matter? You know, they lost. The season was over after the 21-7 shellacking on Saturday, and now the question becomes, what do you do with this program? What does Meat do? You know, he's not getting fired. He's had 2 years, guys, and he's, again, I talk about it. He's made the tournament both years. Now they've snuck in. They've kind of, limped in each of the 2 years he's been the coach, but they have been in the tournament. But now they've been in the tournament twice, and they're 2-4 in those games, and they're not exactly kicking rear end during the regular season either. So where do you go from here? I don't know. Do you need to make changes somewhere? Do you I don't understand why a pitching staff like this, they just seem to kind of collapse at the end of the year. Now they pitched very well on Sunday, I thought, but UCLA isn't much of a hitting team. And when they had to excuse me.
Oh, that sounds soulful. I like that. You're like, whoa.
Getting coughed up, getting choked up. When they had to face legitimate offensive firepower, they melted down. They just succumbed to it. And that's not what great pitching staffs do, man. It's supposed to be the other way around. It wasn't for Florida State this year. And so I don't know. I don't know if Meat – I know I can tell you this. I can promise you this. He's not content or happy with this.
Oh, no.
Not just because his job is on the line, which it is, probably going into next season. But, man, he's a Nole. I know y'all want to throw up when you hear that. But there is nobody that cares more about Florida State baseball than that dude. He grew up in the dugout. He played for him. He's coached there for 20-something years. It pains him to see this team becoming less and less relevant on the national scale. And again, it's a 2-year sample size. I get it. They were in Omaha 3 World Series ago. But it's just not this program isn't anywhere close to where he wants it. He is now going into his 4th year, 3.5 year, whatever you want to call it.
Final year of his contract. This is final.
COVID didn't count. Man, but he said it after the game, it's all on the table. You got to evaluate everything. And he's got to look in the mirror and figure out why his team can never field and why they can never run the bases like they've been taught to run the bases. If I assume they're being coached to run the bases, I know they are. Why do they play like that? Why? I don't quite understand it.
The offense, too, man. I mean, it comes back to that. It's kind of crazy.
Absolutely.
It's kind of eerie, the parallels between him and Norvell. I mean, I think for Norvell going into this season, for Mike Martin Jr. is going to be next season, just how pivotal it is that if you can get 8 wins if you're Mike Norvell, everything's all good. If you can start off, 20-8 or something next season if you're Mike Martin Jr., everything's probably all good. But, if things start showing up, and going sideways for you next year, it's going to be really tough to rebound for the future for you guys. But, I mean, offensively, it's so frustrating to see all these other regionals where every team is they're scoring into the teens. It's gorilla ball all over again. And, I mean, I don't know if UCLA doesn't have Trevor Bauer and Garrett Cole out there, but Florida State can't muster any offense. I mean, they're leaving guys. I mean, that's the craziest thing. It's always been a staple of this team to do weird things in the postseason with errors and running the bases. It's always been that way for whatever reason here in recent memory, the last 10, 15 years. But offensively, this team would at least get on base. They would at least drag you into the deep part of the pool and make you go to your bullpen because they would just run up pitch counts. They don't even do that anymore. And I don't know. You talk about changing he's like, we got to recruit our butts off and we got to evaluate everything. Everything's on the table, as you were referring to. Mike Metcalf got you Jaime Ferrer, who's probably your best overall player on your roster. I mean, and his sort of connections in scouting with the San Francisco Giants got that relationship started. So I don't know if you tuck tail and turn on that, because you do realize how important it is to recruit. Like Jamie Bellinger, I mean, he wasn't your first option, but he did okay. I mean, is Jason Jackson going to come back home after he turned down the job the first time? Alabama isn't doing all that great right now, so maybe he feels it might be better to start over. But the pitching failed you towards the end of the season. That's the only knock I could see. But does this team change with a new pitching coach? They need to play defense and hit the damn ball.
Yeah.
And that's Mike Martin Jr.'s part of the deal.
Absolutely. And, yeah, man, when you look, especially it was illuminated when you looked around the country. You know, you had the Oklahoma State losing to Arkansas like 16-12 and then winning their next game 29-15. LSU having a couple of big scoring nights. Just everywhere. Georgia Tech doing what Georgia Tech did. Now, as we record this, they're playing Tennessee in the championship, but they got to beat them twice. I don't foresee that happening because I assume Georgia Tech is completely out of pitching. But yeah, they put up like 16 or 17 runs against Texas Tech. I think they said in the first 2 days it was the most home runs that had ever been hit, at least since 1999. The first 2 days of the NCAA regional, it was like 230 total over the course of the country. And you know, Florida State had a few of them, but man, you've got to find a way to get kids that can hit for power. And I just read it out. So Tyler Martin played in this game, 0 home runs on the season. Colton Vincent played the whole game, 0 home runs. Trayton Rank came in after Logan Lacey didn't run to first, 1 home run, and it was Saturday night in a game they lost by 100 runs. So it's awesome you got your first one out of the way, man, but it's like you had 0 home runs. And then, Jordan Carrion, 2 home runs. Reese Albert, 1 home run. I just named 5 guys that started or essentially played the entirety of a game in an elimination game, and they combined for 4 home runs, those 5 guys. You can't win. You can't win college baseball like that anymore. I don't know that you ever could. But in 2022, when you see balls flying all over the park, you can't. And so, yes, he absolutely has to do that. Now, look, this is going to sound like I'm making a joke. I've made this joke before in other contexts. But if the kid from NC State, pay him to be your hitting coach. He can be a player coach. You pay him whatever. What do you pay a hitting coach in college? $180,000. Yeah. So he gets that on top of whatever NIL money he's going to get from Warchant and whoever else wants to jump in on it, and let him teach the kids how to hit for power. I don't care. You just do what I do, guys. I don't know, but that was it's remarkable that they had 61 home runs on the season. They had one for most of the season. They had one of the better pitching staffs in the country. They gave up 13 more home runs than they hit. So it's just look, man. That to me. It's not everything because the defense is it's really frustrating at this point. That it's almost like the offensive line in football, where it's like every year it's going to be an issue, huh? This is just a Florida State thing. It's always going to be an issue. And now it's the same thing with defense in Florida State baseball. It has been an issue for a decade, and it'd be cool if it got fixed. And you thought like Jordan Carrion would help, and he's a really talented kid. He had 17 errors this year, man. He had the lowest fielding percentage on the team. So what happened there?
Yeah.
It's perplexing and it's frustrating, but I can promise you Meat isn't cool with what's going on. And I also don't think Meat is going to sit idly by and just be like, let's just keep doing what we're doing. Let's keep sawing wood or what is the other?
Same. It works.
Chopping wood, sawing wood, rowing the boat. No, he's not going to do that.
Climbing.
He knows this roster needs a huge makeover offensively. He's got 2 kids coming back. Well, Brett Roberts comes back, right?
Yeah. So let me ask you that. How many players away do you think they are? You get Tommy, let's say they get Tommy White, and we're probably get our heart broken and he'll go to Florida or something crazy like that. But, what do you think? Like, you got Ferrer, you have Tibbs, you have Tyler. As long as Tyler realizes he's not a home run hitter and tries to level out his swing and stop trying to swing for the fences, I like Tyler in your lineup. Like, how many players away do you think they are from becoming, it's like a solid 42-win team that's going to host a regional at least? Because, listen, we can sit here and talk about the roster, and you've said it. I've said it as well. You're like, listen, he built this roster. This is Meat's roster. He built it. He was here. He was head coach in waiting practically. So everything that's on that field is his. But, man, when you have a glaring weakness on your Sunday rotation and you have a guy like Jonas Scalaro, again, like you said, not doing all that well in high-leverage situations, starts a game against Florida, looks quite well, and you don't kick the tires on that any further, man, that's something that affected the outcome of the season. Because if you were to figure that out, you probably end up hosting. I know they were last 4, but you probably end up hosting with a solid starting staff of boom, Messick, boom, Hubbard, Scalaro, and then you piece it together with Carson Montgomery. Man, you host a regional, and everything is probably completely different than what we're talking about now. So I don't want to say it's totally needs to be just personnel changes. But with that said, Corey, like, how many players, how many pieces do they need to get this thing back to where, we feel comfortable and positive about things.
Yeah, I got you, but I just think there's more. I'm just thinking more macro than micro. I'm just thinking like, there's something that needs to be fundamentally changed about the way the Florida State, the way you're supposed to play baseball is communicated to these players. You just can't keep making awful mistakes at the most inopportune times, and it goes back to last year with DeSadas making that ridiculous throw in a game that they had won. Essentially, just an incredibly bizarre. Why are you doing that? Why would you think to do that? You could have rolled it over to first. Logan Lacey tried it in the game they won. He had a chance to end the game on a 2-hopper, takes 3 crow hops, and throws it to Montgomery. Montgomery, not Carson Montgomery. I meant Montgomery, the city.
Nice.
But hey, it could have been Montgomery. I don't know where Carson was this weekend. Maybe he was hanging out in Montgomery. But yeah, so I just wonder more about that. But yes, for players, look, I think Jaime and Tibbs are impact bats. You've got those guys for 2 more years, assuming they're staying, of course. Roberts is a good hitter. All 3 of those guys hit over 300 their first year at this level, and they all slugged around 500 or better. Roberts struck out the least on your team. So I like those 3 bats, but they're not Tommy White. They're not. At least right now, Tibbs and Ferrer could be. But yeah, I think you need to have. I don't know, man. 7 guys that can hit 8 to 10 home runs a year. You know what? I'm not asking for 7 guys to hit 30, but you got to have 7. You got to have at least 7 guys in a lineup or 8 guys in a lineup in college baseball that can change a game with one swing. You just have to.
He believes in Trayton Rank, but I don't. If you want to throw him there in the mix on that.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, he did hit the tar out of that ball the home run that he hit. But yeah, man, you never know. But yeah, I just think recruiting is fine, but you can't count on freshmen to come in here and just change a program overnight. So you don't want 2023 to be a struggle like 2022 was, but I don't know how it isn't at this point, unless the portal is very kind to you. And again, Florida State is an attractive destination. It just is. So you do have a chance to go out and get even more so than honestly, I think you could. The beauty about baseball, like look what they did this year: Carry-On, Roberts, Terrell, huge impact guys for them this year. I mean, as much as you can be on a team that just got bounced in 3 games in the postseason. So you can go get 3 more like that to go along with Carry-On coming back, Roberts, Ferreira and Tibbs. Okay, so but you've got to go get that kind of caliber, man. And Tommy White, of course, will make a huge difference if it's him. If it's not him, if it's a reasonable facsimile, it's just got to be somebody that can have competitive at bats and can change games with one swing and not swing and miss like Terrell had that in him. And Terrell had a big home run in that tournament in Auburn. But he struck out 77 times this year out of 208 at bats. That's incredible. 77 strikeouts. So maybe get somebody with a little less swing and miss. But man, the beauty is that Meat's going to look. There are the JUCO ranks, and there is just the portals wide open. And Florida State can and is a fun place to play baseball. So that's got to be sold. I don't know enough about this recruiting class to know for sure who's an instant impact bat coming in this year, or an arm because they need both. But man, you've got to go find some bats, man. Because it's like Norvell. It's like the offense is going to be the downfall of both their tenures if it doesn't get turned around.
The clutch shot, the biggest hit. It's time for the Zaxby's Indescribably Good
Player of the Week.
You heard the man. It's time for the Zaxby's Indescribably Good Player of the Week. We just spent 30 minutes lamenting the fortunes of the baseball team, but I'm going to go with Jonas Scalaro, Corey. Jonas Scalaro to go 6 1/3, only allowed 5 hits, 1 earned run, struck out 9, a career high, to be put in a position that he's not very familiar with, but absolutely shined. Will Zierzow-esque almost, dare I say. Again, man, it's unfortunately his last start in a Florida State jersey. His career comes to an end, but I mean, just what an incredible performance out of him. If you would have said Jonas Scalaro is going to start for you in an elimination game, he's going to go over 6 innings, only allow 1 run, and strike out 9 people. You're like, I feel good about making it to the championship game. Didn't work out that way, but doesn't take away from Jonas Galaro's effort.
I told you before we started this segment that I was going to go with Jaime Ferrer. He did have a couple of doubles and a home run, the only run they scored on Sunday. But he also had that crazy base running and had a horrible error in right field. I said, you know what? No, we can't have 2 indescribably good players from a team that just went 1-2 in a regional. So you know who I'm going with, Aslan?
Come on.
I'm going with you.
Come on.
You go over to Auburn on Friday to cover that game. The only game they won, by the way. Maybe you should have stuck around. And then you haul back either that night or Saturday morning and spend the next 2 days just awash in the mega camp recruiting of Mike Norvell, getting videos up all over the place, doing this show, getting the video from Auburn, driving all over the South. You're my indescribably good player of the week, buddy. And I mean that. I know it sounds sarcastic when I'm giving compliments. It's a problem I've had my whole life, but I'm being genuine. Like Shano still wasn't sure I was actually proposing. It doesn't sound real, but I promise you it's real, buddy. I congratulations.
We'll say Jaime Ferrer for you, and we'll say Jonas
Okay,
Galaro. Our Zaxby's indescribably good players of the week. All right, let's get to it, Michael. The mega camp was on Sunday. We're going to focus on the elite camp that went down on Saturday.
Right.
Let's start on offense. And as always, the needs rely on the trenches. Offensive linemen, there was a lot of guys that you're keeping an eye on, but maybe 2 or 3 in particular. You want to break it down for us who you saw on Saturday and who kind of flashed?
Yeah, I think the obvious one, you talk about Roderick Kearney. I mean, he was really good. I mean, just really under control when he blocks. He's really fast, but he gets a hold of somebody. It's almost over once he gets a hold of. So I thought he did really well. I think Jatavius Shivers also impressed me a lot. I think he was a guy that really jumped out at me. I think he can play guard or probably more inside guy if I had to guess, and I watch him. And then the guy that really just impressed me the most was DJ Chester, who they've already offered. I think he was phenomenal. Showed a lot of different things where he can play inside or out. He didn't have a trouble. He was the one guy that gave Jordan Hall trouble. I mean, he beat Jordan Hall on a rep. So I think he was the most consistent overall with the one-on-ones. And, those 3 guys, really jumped out to me. Caden Jones was also good, big, tall, long, athletic, guy with a lot of wingspan. He certainly gave people trouble with that length. And then Kenyon Cox was also there from Phoenix City. So those were kind of the main ones. But it was a really good offensive line group. I mean, it was a really strong group, as people saw in the video. But those 3 probably are kind of a notch above just everyone else from my view when I watched it. I thought all 3 of them had a really good day.
All right, let's go directly behind them. Let's go to the quarterbacks. Chris Parson was in the house. Luke Kromhawk also in the house, but maybe some other guys to keep an eye on. But how did you sort of maybe assess the play of Chris and Luke?
Yeah, so I was, sending updates to, Ira just to the stuff that was going on, and I'm like, this Luke kid looks like the best guy here so far. And, what I saw, and it wasn't like Chris was terrible. It was just Luke was so good with the way where he put the ball, the location of the ball, the accuracy on the deep balls, and like every different type of throw he seemed to be comfortable. It wasn't perfect. He was off on a few of them, but for the most part, I think Luke was just more consistent from what I saw. Both of them have a lot of zip on the ball. Chris certainly showed the zip, but I think it's the accuracy and the timing. It seemed to be better in this event for Luke to me. But I think both of them did pretty well, and as far as standing out. But it really, I was kind of taken back, surprised. I was expecting Chris to just dominate, but I think Luke in this setting was a little bit better.
Were there some other new names that emerged at quarterback that caught your eye, Michael?
There was a few more guys. I think we covered kind of on the during the updates, but no one that like FSU's like for sure 100% like pushing for. I think the 2025 kid, the Colin Hudley kid, that I think people I think he's good. I mean, it's real thick lower body, so he gets a lot of transition and velocity with his hips. So he's a guy I kind of like, and it was a few others, but I think I really focused a lot of my attention, on those two guys with Parson and Luke, since obviously they're committed. And I just think I thought on this day Luke was the better. He seemed to be more control, and in the presence in the pocket, he seemed to be much more comfortable with the throws he was making. It wasn't like he felt like he was not like connecting with the receivers, and these are receivers he's never played with. So it seemed he seemed to be the guy that was most in control of everything.
Austin Cox did a follow-up story on Chris Parson. Everything all right, though, right? We're all good? Happy?
I don't know.
Happy?
I mean, it sounds good, but I still think he's going to take a visit or two just on places just to compare. I think probably Mississippi State would be a place I think he would visit since he's from Mississippi. You would think he would go check them out. So I still think he's going to take visits, even though he told us everything seemed great. Everything seemed good that, they discussed it firmly with him, like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And certainly we know FSU's hosting quarterbacks and even starting next weekend. I think Ricky Collins is the Purdue commitment is going to FSU's going to host him. So I think I think they're going to look and he's going to look. So he seemed understanding about the whole situation. We also asked him directly about, hey, what's the deal? Do you feel comfortable? And he gave the indication of, hey, I'm firmly into it. And I don't think FSU's I don't get a sense there's an over concern of, oh, he's going to leave us. He's going to Luke Altemeyer us or something like that. I think it's just they feel good about the relationship. They feel good about what they're doing, but they understand, hey, if you got to take a visit.
All right, and then behind them in the backfield, wrapping things up in terms of the backfield, Cameron Davis, man, this dude, just a human muscle, a bowling ball of butcher knives, 5'10", 200 pounds. He looked pretty good, right?
Yeah, he was my alpha dog that I would pick on offense. Just there was several great offense linemen you could pick. A lot of those guys had great days, but this guy just naturally does stuff that you really can't teach too much. I mean, usually when you get like stocky guys, they're stiff up front or stiff down low. There's not as shifty, but Cam's a little different where the cutting ability, the balance is all there. He does all that. And I told people after this event, look, you want to see what he does during the season. You can kind of evaluate all of it, but I mean, it looks like certainly a high 5-star candidate for me. When I watch him play, just does naturally everything you look for. He's very comfortable as a receiver. Another thing, when you get stocky guys, usually they may not have their arms get in the way, or maybe you're not as flexible or anything. But with Cam, it seems very natural. It's like it didn't feel like there was anything that he wasn't comfortable with when they were doing out there, when Coach Yak was running him through everything. And then one-on-ones, he was a man among boys. He was just, he definitely separated himself from everyone else. When you watch, he's like, okay, this guy looks different the way he plays, the speed, the acceleration, the space, what he does in one-on-ones. He's kind of everything you're looking for in a back. And I think he was tremendous. Cam had a tremendous day.
All right, let's talk about out wide pass catchers. Cameron Fryer was in the house. Van Drevius Jacobs. I don't want to steal any of your thunder, man. What do you think about the receivers?
Dre put on the show, man. For those who watched the one-on-one, the video Aslan put together, and even the little clips that we had deep. When you're talking about big plays, I don't think there's anybody that made more big plays than Dre. Just the separation he gets from corners is really noticeable, and that's kind of a thing that we've talked about, even complained about, with the FSU receivers that they don't get enough of that. I don't think that's going to be a problem with Dre. I mean, Dre was extremely good. Sometimes he's a little out of control in his routes where he's going so fast that his body control is kind of a little out of whack. But overall, he was phenomenal. I thought he put on a great performance, and he's had some Odell Beckham type catches out there, just some crazy stuff. But the big takeaway for me just with him was the separation and how explosive this guy is. Once he breaks off that route in the first cut, I thought he was extremely good. And I was really impressed with Camden Fryer because I wasn't expecting him to be able to. I thought he's mostly just a slot, but he's a guy that I think you can line up anywhere, wide out or inside. And the thing I liked about him is he was so in control of all his routes. When you watch him, he's in control. Like he's going fast, but he's always in control. So when he makes that cut, he's always got his hands positioned to make the catch. His body's squared up. He's right there. And then we saw some plays where he got separation as well on the deep balls and had some big plays there. So I thought Dre was the most explosive, but I think the most consistent for me was Fryer.
Let's turn to defense and let's start up front in the trenches, front four tackles, rush ends, whatever, setting the edge. Defensive line, Jordan Hall's the guy that we caught up with in Duval County about 2 weeks ago now. He was obviously at the camp. Boots, Lamont Green Jr., another one. What else? Maybe expound a little bit more on those guys. Anybody else that caught your eye, Michael?
Yeah, I think the top guy for me, was Jordan Hall. I just felt like consistently he beat everybody. I mean, I think he only lost one rep. He's so much more quicker with his pass rush. Told me there's a few things Coach Odell did that kind of loosened that up as far as how he uses his hands and not just depending on the speed. So I think he generates a lot of speed through the way he uses his hands, and I think that jumped out to you. I thought he was the best, most consistent, and then Boots, Lamont Green Jr. This is the first time I've actually seen Lamont in person where, after he's put on that weight, his frame looks phenomenal. I think he said he's around 230, but his frame looks phenomenal. You can see before when I watched Boots, it was like he can get off the edge and he's really lightning quick. But when the guy extends his arm, he goes to the ground. Now that doesn't happen. He just powers through it. So you saw a lot of that where he is lightning in a bottle. I mean, he gets on that edge, he's gone. Like it's a sack. So I think the thing with him is that strength. He's been able to initiate contact and absorb contact and get through it. Where before I think he was going to the ground, and I think the next thing, I guess the next step I would see Lamont. I want to see kind of him what he does when he goes inside. I think that's kind of the next step in the maturation of his pass rushing game. But I think overall, I think Boots was really good. I think Boots had a really good showing.
And then what about on the back end, Michael? The secondary, what'd you see out there?
Yeah, there was a lot of talented guys. I think Sharif Denson was a real good one. He was consistently. Yeah, we saw a lot of big plays by Jacobs, but if you watch a lot of those plays, Denson was right there on him. I mean, Jacobs was just making some circus crazy catches that, the coverage was right where you want it to be. I thought he was really good. I thought KJ Kirkland at safety showed a lot of range. I didn't realize how athletic he is. Really instinctful guy that I thought had a strong day. I think he kind of stood out to me. And Quindarius Jones, a JUCO prospect, I thought had a pretty good day. He was the guy. If you're looking for a guy that gave Jacobs trouble, he had a couple pass breakups on Jacobs that, it's very impressive, very long, not like your normal other corners where if they're long, they're not really thick. And this kid had some thickness to him. So I think those guys kind of jumped out to me as far as in the DBs.
All right, and then overall, man, Michael, how would you kind of size up the weekend, the entire sort of presentation and what you heard from recruits when you spoke to them after Saturday's elite camp?
I think from the recruiting perspective, it was pretty good. All the recruits that were the elite ones we spoke to it was pretty positive. There's a lot of good things to take away, and certainly FSU would feel good. Obviously, I think my takeaway there's a lot of 3 stars. Man, there's a lot of 3 stars, and you want to change that to 4 stars. Now, part of that is FSU hosted a ton of kids early in the spring, and a lot of them just want to see what these guys do on the field. But part of it too is, hey, we're not sold on these guys. We want to see what they do on the field. We want to see you show what you're going to do against LSU. So I think it's a wait and see for some of these guys, and certainly you see that effect on not as many top elite guys compared to last year when you had the Travis Hunters and Sam McCall. I mean, it was 4 stars, 5 stars everywhere. So I think prospects want to see what this product is, and so overall they have to. It comes down to winning. We talk about it all the time. You got to win, and I think if they do that, then certainly you're going to be a significant shift. Say they go in there and they beat LSU. I think it's a significant shift in what guys you're going to see on campus from elite standpoint. But I think it's to a point where recruits kind of want to see that progress keep growing.
All right, then, Michael, what's going to be cooking over on the PRB, man? June is going to be exceptionally busy, it sounds like, for you in Austin.
Yeah, it's going to be really busy. Starting, I think they have a camp on June 6th at FIU that, I think Randy Shannon's going over. That's kind of maybe a Randy Shannon thing. So it might have a few South Florida kids, not here in like big names or anything like that yet. But then the big day for us is going to be June 8th. That's when they start the individual camps. I think there's a big man camp coming up. So that will be a busy day where we're confirming guys, see who's going to show up. That's a big time for me and probably one of the most exciting because, the individual camps when you really get that individual time. We saw today, like, on Sunday, you have like 2,000 kids there and, God knows how many. You don't get that personal time that you do get at these individual camps or the big man camps or the 7-on-7 competition. I think you get more of an individual look, a personal look with the coaches, and I think you'll certainly that we have that coming up. We still have a few guys we're going to hit up with. I got a feature I'm going to work on with Camden Fryer, Lamont Green Jr. and Cam Davis that I'm going to put together all in one thing. Just kind of talk about the camp experience, elite camp experience, and go through a lot of that stuff. And then certainly we still have a few more guys that we want to get up, and then we'll see too. When they're not camping before Wednesday, what kids show up at the Moore Athletic Center and take a visit to FSU. And so that's what I'm going to kind of be working on tonight, just to see kind of what's next, who's visiting next. And that's kind of what we got coming up.
Oh, hey, last thing real quick. Julian Armello is out there.
Yeah,
he looks impressive.
Phenomenal. Looked phenomenal. I chatted for him for a little while. Looks like 285 to me, 290, but it's a slim razor board. Looks like a board. It's kind of how last time I saw him, how he looked, and he's loving it. And I've heard nothing but really positive things from my FSU contacts about him doing all the right things, him being the first in line to do all the things that they're asking him to do, and so yeah, he looked phenomenal. It was really cool seeing all the incoming freshmen. A lot of them were out there. We saw a lot of them out there at the league camp, so it was really cool. But yeah, Julian looks phenomenal.
All right, right on. All right, check out the PRB. It's a premium recruiting board over at warchant.com. You got to be a member to access it. All that information, bottom of your screen. Hit the thumbs up on the way out. All that info is at the PRB, but you just got it for free. We're going to go out of business. Michael, thank you, man.
Thank you, bud.
Warchant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. Warchant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.